Now, I did say that we'd hear a bit more about our organ appeal later on. So I've asked Jonathan. Now, most of the time, Jonathan plays at the 9 o'clock service. Basically, because they give a lot more in the collection. But I've asked him to come and talk to us because Jonathan sort of sits up there in the organ loft and we often don't see him. So, Jonathan, just tell us, how long have you been playing the organ?
I think I started when I was 12, so almost 40 years ago, believe it or not.
What begins a 12-year-old boy playing the organ?
I already knew music because I played the clarinet, but we were church-going family, and my granddad persuaded me to have a go one day on the church organ, and it went from there.
And, I mean, when as a young boy, you just pressed those keys, and suddenly you must have had noise coming from everywhere. What did it feel like?
Power was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
You can get a lot out of an organ, can't you?
Can have this one for sure, yeah.
Now, when you play it now, in church, leading the congregation, helping us to praise God, what does that feel like for you?
It feels like you're really helping the worship on a Sunday and in the other services you play for. It's great to hear people singing hymns, which of course we've not been able to do for a long time. But to hear that worship is just fantastic. And after I've finished playing, I often look up at the inscription above the organ, which says, "To the glory of God," which is what we're doing it for. So I feel like I'm part of the whole story here.
So that inscription, that's what is carved on the top of the organ loft there.
It was given by a family that lived at Brookley, and it was donated to the church. I think in today's money it would have cost £150,000 to build, but that was the value of the donation in today's money. But to actually replace this organ is about £1 million, or a bit above £1 million. That's how good this instrument is.
Could you, by the way, we're not replacing the organ, don't worry. The work we want doing, it'll only be about 875,000. Just tell us what it is that we need to do to the organ. We've got some amazing
good pictures up there. I've left the organ switched on so you can hear that noise, sort of noise coming from it.
That little hiss.
That is the sound of all the air escaping from the bellows, which is part of the repair work. So these are the bellows here on this screen. There's 3 of them in the organ. 2 of them are about 10 foot square. They're huge, and they're basically huge leather balloons that air is pumped into, and they go from these bellows into the pipes under high pressure. So as soon as I pull a stop open, the air can then go into the pipes and I press the notes. But the bellows they're 127 years old, these bellows now. The leather is original, so they're now leaking badly. And one day they'll just suddenly go and then we won't have an organ at all. So part of the money, in fact, more than half, I think, is to replace the leather of the bellows. It's not to replace the bellows, just to repair them. And the other work is to clean the organ while this is being done, which you'll see all the dust that's in there. So if you get dust inside the pipes, they'll start to make sounds they shouldn't make. You might think it's me making mistakes, which it could well be, but it's also the organ. And also the stops that I pull out, the machine that connects the stops to the pipes, that needs replacing as well, because that's worn out. So it's really just wear and tear. But for an instrument that's 127 years old, it's done pretty well.
It's 127 years old. Now, a lot of church organs, Jonathan, they are basically Victorian constructions, and a lot of them are really struggling and are basically not being replaced. So we're restoring ours. What do you feel about seeing all these great organs fading away into the past?
It's a crying shame, really, because they were such amazing instruments in their day, and a lot of churches can't afford to keep them going. We at Calverley have actually kept this one going really well. It had a major refit in 1980, but it's essentially the original instrument. And I play in other churches for weddings and funerals. Recently at St Margaret's, Horsforth, that organ needs over 70,000 spending on it, for instance. So I think we've got an organ that's pretty good. In fact, it's one of the best in the area, and it's almost working like it should do. It just needs this bit of money spending on it to get it back up to scratch and keep it going for another 100 years, so our children, grandchildren can hear it and be part of it. If you think about here, John and Pauline Corbin got married in this church over 50 years ago and had the organ played for that. I got married 5 years ago, had the organ. A couple came this morning, they're having the organ in July. So it's very much part of the life here of the church.
And of the whole community. At the heart of it all, Jonathan, you're amazing, because I'm always asking you to play different types of music, and you always say yes. But you must have a favourite, like, type of music or composer.
For the organ, I would say J.S. Bach is my favourite, because his organ writing, music writing was prolific. He's just written hundreds and hundreds of religious pieces of music that are now played on the organ. And I've played one, as you were coming in this morning, Jesus, Joy of Man's Desiring, that's still very popular. And a lot of hymns were inspired by his music as well.
And I know that not just playing the tunes that we ask for, but you give a lot of careful thought to the other pieces of music that you play around the service.
Yeah, today I'm playing Panis Angelicus during the communion, which is Latin for Bread of Angels, which was the last verse of a hymn written by St. Thomas Aquinas for the Festival of Corpus Christi, which we just had 3 days ago, basically Festival of the Holy Communion. And at the end I'll be playing a piece by Handel that was from his oratorio called Solomon, about King Solomon, and it was the arrival of the Queen of Sheba when she went to visit Solomon in Jerusalem, having heard about his wisdom and power. She wants to go and see for herself. So this is music composed to give you that idea of her arriving in all her glory from her kingdom.
Forward to that. I really do think that it's all very well having a great organ, and we have, and we've certainly had our money's worth over the years. But what's really important is to have a special organist. And in all my years of knowing church musicians, Jonathan really is. He's not just great musically, he's also deep spiritually and puts his heart into it. So I think we should all give him a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, Jonathan, thank you.